First thing that I always talk about on our trench rollers is this little thing right here. This is a radio frequency remote control, okay, operated by 3 AA batteries, okay. Competition's unit is run by a box remote control that hangs around your neck, and it is a charging remote control. If it runs out of charge, it has to be recharged, and it's about a 45-minute recharge to do that. Used to be you were able to operate those units manually with the umbilical cord, but that is not the case anymore with whackers. So if you're out of charge, you're done until you recharge. If you're out of charge on this one, you put 3 AA batteries in it. If you don't have 3 AA batteries, you can still operate this unit manually by standing at the back with the joysticks. So this is an unbelievably great feature. This is radio frequency, which basically means there is no interference at all that will be created with this unit. Dust, atmospheric conditions, which can all affect infrared. Infrared remote control will not affect this. So another huge feature. The last thing about this, that box on that unit, the remote control box on that unit, is about a $3,200 replacement cost. If you run over this or lose this or whatever, basically what we can do is you just take the radio out of this unit, send it back into the factory. We'll send a new radio with a new remote control back to you. At Stone, it was about an $850 charge, and I'm anticipating it's going to be pretty close to that as we move forward with the Toro units. But a big difference, guys. And I know you're saying, well, that box is big enough, who's going to lose that or who's going to break that? Well, it happens all the time, okay? So a big consideration when you're out selling, particularly the remote control portion of our equipment. The second thing I always talk about on our trench roller is the skid steer straight frame, rigid frame unit compared to the articulating unit of now most of our competition. The first advantage that I always talk about with our skid steer straight frame is it turns in zero. Okay, basically it turns within itself. You don't have to worry about a 12-foot turning radius as you have with the articulating unit. So that is a huge advantage from a maneuverability standpoint, both on top grade and when you're down in a ditch. Now I have a top grade ditch mapped out over there, okay, so we'll do some playing with that as we get through this, but it very definitely more maneuverable. And you know, Whacker says that it's not, but you know, it's Whacker can't turn their unit in with 0 turns, so it just really is more maneuverable at the end of the day. Another advantage of the skid steer unit, we have fire drilled our hydraulic lines through the frame of this unit. So the only exposed hydraulic hoses that you're going to see, unfortunately I have it turned around, are going to be over here coming out of the pumps into the eccentrics motor. Those 3 hoses down there are the only outerly exposed hoses that you're gonna have on this unit. Compared to what you have on an articulating unit, you have a hose bundle running through that articulation joint. Guess what happens when that unit turns? Those hoses are rubbing against each other. Guess what happens when hoses rub against each other? They wear out and they need to be replaced. So this is, again, I think a huge feature and has huge benefits for the skid steer straight frame unit. Next thing that I talk about with our unit is the electrical connections. We have what is referred to as SnapTech technology on all of our electrical connectors under the hood, and I'll show you when we open that up. Basically, with a unit that's hitting at a total of 18,000 pounds of applied force, you don't want electrical connectors coming loose all the time. One of the biggest problems that Whacker has experienced over the years is electrical problems, and they've had those problems because they haven't gone to this type of technology. So it's a real big deal. We even go to the extent of shrink wrapping some of the connectors under the hood here, and what that does is it keeps the moisture out of the connectors as well as making them more tight, you know, under the amount of force that this unit is experiencing. The eccentrics motor on our unit is mounted as an integral part of the frame. This is it right here. okay? Eccentrics motors on a skid steer unit or on an articulating unit cannot be mounted in the middle of the unit because it turns in the middle of the unit. So their answer to that is, well, we're going to put smaller eccentrics in each of the 4 drums, okay? Sounds like a pretty good idea, right? But what happens when you do that is the force that are created by those smaller drums, even though the total force may be equal to what we're doing, it dissipates because of where those eccentrics are. Basically, you're moving that force out this way. On our unit, that force that's being created is going straight down into the ground. So that's one reason why our unit will appear to, and actually does, hit harder than any articulating unit that you're going to find, because we're pushing that force down. They're actually spreading it out over the sides of the unit because of the way they install those in the drums. From a hose repair standpoint, and I've said this now 8 times, so if I repeat myself, guys, just say you already said that. Can we go to the next point? But to repair hoses on an articulating unit, or to replace hoses on an articulating unit, is typically a 1.5 to 2 day job. To do the same thing on this unit, it's basically less than a half a day. So it really is a major job, and I'm sure you guys have maybe seen pictures in the past of the hose bundle in those drums. It is a mess, and you don't have to deal with only that down there, but you have to deal with them all snaking through the center of the unit and down through the compartments. So it is a major advantage that we have from a maintenance standpoint and from keeping this unit in service. The last thing that I'm going to talk about are the diagnostics on this unit, and I'm going to lift up the hood. You want to hold that for me, please? Lift up the hood to kind of show you what that's all about. Sorry, I'm on the wrong side of the camera. Shut it. You can shut it off, please. These new are really, the rubbers that hold these down in there are really pretty tight. So it typically doesn't take this kind of force. It's gotten harder all day. It's gotten harder all day, and I think it's probably because I'm more tired.
Oh, could be. Oh, dust. Smoke.
Yeah. This one's easier. Yeah. Thanks, Daryl.
No problem.
This is a clamshell type hood that opens up and basically gives you full access to the engine compartment as well as all the electronics. We run a 20 horsepower Hatz diesel in this unit and have been running pretty much that same diesel engine for almost 18 years. So it's been pretty reliable from a standpoint of being the right engine for this application. This is a big feature on our unit is this right here. This is the lifting eye, and it's directly mounted to the frame of the unit down underneath. You see the lifting eye on the articulating unit. They obviously can't do it like we do it, so they have to put it on one side or the other. Well, guess what happens when that unit is picked up? It's going to be doing this, okay, down on the artic joint, okay? And the longer you do that, the more wear and tear on that joint, and eventually it's going to fail. So they can't do it any other way, because
I mean, is that a center lifting point, or does it think that the machine tilt?
No, it's pretty center. Yeah, they've addressed that, but there's no way they can stop it from doing this kind of thing, you know. And again,
if it's at a bit of an angle, if it's not lined up straight, and you try and lift it.
Even worse. Even worse. Exactly. Yeah, you can lock it in, but guys aren't going to do that typically, you know. Yeah, exactly. This up here is all the electronics of the unit. This is a junction box that controls all the electrical components in the unit. This is the onboard computer that is very sophisticated, and I'll talk about some of the things it does in a second. And here's your radio. Again, as you can see, all Snaptech connectors here. Okay, we've got shrink wraps here, we got shrink wrap here, we've got, you know, we've really tried to design things into this that prevent it from banging itself to death. So it's really pretty cool what they've done. We are now shipping the trench roller with an Optima gel cell battery as standard, okay, which is a big deal. Again, with a unit that hits as hard as this does, a standard water battery just is really not efficient to run. They fail and they wear out much too quick. But the gel cell battery, this is not one of them. But going forward, the Toro trench rollers are going to be shipped with a gel cell battery. Starting with diagnostics. By the way, just real quick, this bar right here is a crush bar, okay, and it works off a proximity switch under the hood there. And what it does, if a guy's using this unit manually and he gets himself trapped between the wall and the unit, this bar will go down and the drive will shut off. It won't crush him. So that's a safety feature. If you come around to the side here, starting with the diagnostics, we've got LED lights right down here that basically, when you're operating this remotely, this will tell you if your radio is receiving the right signals for right, left, front, rear. By those lights will light up as that's happening, so you can immediately tell if you've got problems in one side or the other, or the front or the rear. Let me shut the hood real quick. I'm facing the sun, unfortunately, and this thing is really dusty, but some more diagnostics that I can show you. We've got a 4-function fault code system built into the computer on this unit. If I turn the key to the left, it's going to give me what those faults have been, if there are any in the system. The first number that came up was 3.2. That's the number of hours on the unit. The second thing that came up said e-stop. And what that means is the last time this thing was turned off, it was turned off with the e-stop and not the remote control button, okay? And why is that important? It's important because I've had customer after customer tell me that they get calls from people out in the field, the thing won't start. Well, you go through a couple of simple diagnostics on this, turn the key, and you say, well, it says e-stop. Well, that's why it won't start, because you stopped it with the e-stop and you didn't lift it back up. Lift it back up, fire it back up, they're up and running. So, you know, what we've tried to do is we've tried to make diagnostics in the field more efficient, rather than having to go take them another unit, bring this unit back, and sometimes it's easy fixes that can be done right out in the dirt. It also watches low oil. It watches, it will read out your RPMs. And it will also read out tilt or tip. If you tip this unit, it's going to tell you it's going to store into the computer that unit was tipped. Another reason why that's important is a guy calls you up and says, hey, the trench roller went down, can't get it restarted. Don't know what happened, okay? Can't figure it out over the phone, so you bring the unit back in. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to look at the fault codes that appeared in the computer during that rental, and you're going to see that guy tipped it over, okay? Because it's going to have that stored in the memory as a fault code, and you're going to tell him, hey, you tipped it over. No, I didn't. Well, yeah, you did. Right here it is, okay? So at the end of the day, I'm not sure that you know, that gives the rental guy a lot to stand on, but he can control the rental and know what happens to this unit when it goes out. Now, it stores up to 20 different fault codes, okay, at one time. So what a rental guy will do is he should clear the computer out every time this thing goes out on rent. So when it comes back in, he has exact diagnosis of what happened during that rental period. So it's really pretty sophisticated, and it's a great tool. You know, at the end of the day, much more sophisticated than you're going to find with the system across the way there. Let's see. That's really it. Let me talk about things that I've already talked about most of them, but the main things that we've got to do to sell against the competition. First is the durability of this unit. Very heavy duty base, steel, heavy duty cowling. That is a carbon fiber product that is that cowling over there is made out of. And you can imagine what's going to happen with that if a guy runs his bucket into it or a chain into it or something, it's not going to last nearly as long as ours will. Our center of gravity is very low, so the stability of this unit is great. We obviously want to talk about the hose maintenance, you know, when we're talking about advantages to our unit. When they have to change the hoses, ours is a much more easier unit to work on. The eccentric force, as I mentioned, this thing hits much harder than any articulating unit will ever hit. The radio frequency remote control, diagnostics, and people kind of shy away from selling skid steer straight frame, but I want to tell you, I've sold a lot of these in the last 10 years, and I don't shy away from talking about straight frame units, you know, from a standpoint of maintenance, from a standpoint of maneuverability. You know, there's just a lot of advantages that a straight frame unit is going to have over an articulating unit. What do those guys say about us? The main thing that they say about us and a straight frame unit is that it tears up the top 1 or 2 inches of pad that you're compacting. Okay, I'm sure you've all heard that over the years. This is a compactor. It's not a finish roller, it's a compactor. You're compacting 6 inches to 10 inches to really up to 18-inch lifts. And what a lift is, it's how much dirt you're actually setting this thing on to compact. So the top 1 or 2 inches is really not an issue. You know, it's not a finish roller, it's a compactor that you're compacting down into the ground. So that really doesn't hold a lot of water. The next thing they say is that their unit can go around a manhole, and that the straight frame unit cannot. Okay? Well, I don't know about you guys, I haven't seen a lot of 12-foot manholes in my experience here, and they're not. You know, a typical manhole is at most.
I get that every time.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Well, that's exactly what you got to come back and say. You know, there are.
On one side and then go on this.
That's exactly. Or they go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
That with this.
Yeah, well, not as much with this, because you can get around this. I'm inexperienced, and I can get around it still in about 10-12 seconds. Okay, so it's just really not the case. I mean, it's something that they've marketed for a long time, and they've got people believing it because they've sold a lot of units, you know, over the years. They say that the articulating design is more maneuverable. My quick answer to that is Toro's unit will do everything any other articulating unit will do, but an articulating unit cannot do everything a Toro unit can do. And one of the major thing is the zero turn. I mean, and that's a huge feature to this unit at the end of the day. They say that it's better. They will tell you that this articulating unit is better for top grade compacting. When you're compacting typically in a straight line, okay? So if you put this unit up against that unit and you're compacting the same lifts or the same soil area, there is no way that that unit will outperform our unit from a compaction standpoint. In fact, because as hard as it hits, and because of the lower frequency which we have in our units, you're going to probably have Jerry seems to think that it's anywhere from a third to a half fewer passes that you're going to get the same compaction out of our unit that you're going to get out of that unit. So it's all about productivity, and if you can get the same compaction in one pass that you can in 3 with another unit, which one would you rather have? So the only other thing that you're going to hear out in the industry, specifically now that Bomag has come out with their new articulating unit, Bomag has a bolt-on drum extender. So basically it bolts on to a 24-inch drum and makes it a 34-inch drum. And it is a nice feature. I've not really seen it that much in the field and operating, but you know, it's something probably that makes sense. Again, you can have one skew and you have 2 different widths, you know, and only maintaining one skew. Right now, we can still, this is a 34, but we can offer this same unit with a 24-inch drum kit. We just ship the drum kit out separately, so we do have the ability to change this out. Because the eccentric motors are not embedded in the drums, to change this to a 24-inch configuration is a piece of cake. You just unbolt the drums, slide them off, slide the new ones back on, and you're back you're back up and running. You could even do it in the field if you have a way to crane one end up at a time. So that's kind of what you're going to hear, what you've obviously already heard, probably more times than we would like to talk about, huh, Ken? But anyway, I've had great success selling these units to anywhere from mom and pops clear up to national accounts. I sold my first 2 units last fall into Finning Cat up in Edmonton. We sell these units to Wyoming Rents Cat in Wyoming, and we just had a huge order last year with Sunbelt. What was it, Daryl? Wasn't it like 30 total units on that order for the spring delivery? Unfortunately, because of what happened with Stone, we weren't able to deliver them, but they love the unit, and you know, we went through some testing with those companies, which is typically what you have to do, and they come to us because that unit they can't keep on the ground. It's on the ground in the shop. They can't keep it vibrating, let's put it that way. And
yeah, almost every time I go into a United, you see one of those on a lift somewhere.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And if you really look at some of the, RSC even has shown us reports in the past that showed us what percentage of their trench roller fleet was actually not available for rent, and the numbers are huge, like it's 60–70%. Yeah. You know, and it's just you know, it obviously is a problem, and that's why we're getting some opportunities. And it's as I said, it's anywhere from little guys to the big guys. There's TPH up in it's a little company up in northwestern Alberta. Where are they, Brent?
No, I'm south.
Something Lake, Sylvan Lake, Alberta. TPH, just a little guy up there. He's about the only guy in town. He bought a trench roller last year from us. So you know, don't be afraid to talk to anybody out there about these, because they're units that utilize, and they're units that have pretty good ROIs at the end of the day. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to start these things up, and I'm going to run a couple paces here, and then I'll just let you guys play with them for a little bit, okay?